What's up guys, welcome back to Pat Outdoors. Today we're going to be working on my Razor SX500. This bike has been down for at least 2 or 3 months now. It all started when I threw on the E&C 12-inch Supermotos on. The bike ended up standing a little too tall for the current kickstand, and then I removed the hydraulic fork that was on there to put it on the giveaway bike 2 months ago. That was the ETM V2 hydraulic fork. It was a little bit too soft anyway, since this bike is significantly heavier than your traditional Razor. I've got a 72 volt Amorge 40 amp hour battery in there. Then we've got the E&C 12-inch Supermotos, and I'm also close to 180 pounds now. So we're going to be installing a much heavier duty fork kit on this Razor SX500. We're also going to be throwing on a couple more upgrades and correcting a few mistakes I may have made in the process. I went with the Curbhopper Customs 45-48 fork tubes. These have compression and rebound adjustment. They're also much thicker and heavier duty than what you typically see on a Razor build. This is actually the same dimensions as what's on a ETM RTR. And then these are the Curbhopper Customs Premium Triple Tree clamps. It's much heavier duty than what I'm used to for triple tree clamps on a Razor. They're like CNC machined aluminum pieces, and it's got a really nice anodized finish to it. I went with all black everything. I feel like this will always look good with whatever I decide to do with this Razor in the future. These are the handlebar clamps, some decals, hardware to put everything together. This is for the head tube. This is definitely a lot thicker than what comes with a Razor. So it actually came with some bearings for us to replace what's currently on the head tube. And then this is just the front axle. And I believe these are some battery straps, but I already have some on here, so we're not going to be using this for this specific project. I believe the fork tubes were like 170, 180 bucks, and then the triple tree clamps were 130. I'm really impressed for what we got for a $300 price range. Gonna get the fork tubes to the exact height I want them and torque down the bolts on the top triple tree clamp. On the lower one, we're gonna snug them up a little bit, but leave them loose enough so we can slide the clamp up and down when we're mounting it on the bike. Pretty much keeping them loose enough to be able to do this. So we'll pretty much put it on the bike, and we're gonna slide the bottom clamp upward till we hit the bottom side of the head tube. So I'm just gonna knock out the original bearings. Just gonna use a screwdriver and a hammer. So this tube pretty much sits in between the top and bottom bearings. It's just floating there. You just gotta put your screwdriver through and then push it off to the side so you can get the tip of your screwdriver on top of the bearing, and then just try to smack it down with a hammer. It's definitely gonna take quite a few times. You're gonna destroy it doing it this way, but we're gonna be throwing on a fresh set of bearings anyway. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna try to use a 7/8 inch socket. There it is, guys. 7/8 socket with an extension did the job. I'm putting the new bearings on. I'm going to be really careful and use a rubber mallet, get it set in place. I'm probably going to add a little bit of grease on all the rollers before we put everything together. This bolt's actually quite a bit longer than the original one, so we're gonna have to add some spacers at the bottom to get it to fully clamp down. Now that we got the triple tree clamps fully clamped down and the bearings installed, I'm just gonna make sure that the fork tubes are completely symmetrical, and then I'm gonna torque down all the triple tree bolts. And it's actually spot on. I really like that the bottom side of the top triple tree clamp is recessed, so you can actually just put the nut in there. So you don't even have to hold a wrench on the bottom side. Then you can just put the handlebar mounts up top. The top and the bottom are also slotted in case you want a very specific position, and then you can just torque it down from the top. So hopefully the spacers that came with my Electro 12-inch Supermotos will still work on this fork. I actually completely forgot that I may or may not need a brake caliper adapter. Hopefully not. Seems like the current spacers are going to work, though I may need to add a washer or two on the brake caliper side. Since the bolts for the rotor come really close to the inside portion of the fork, and I can see that potentially making noise. So we're just going to add 1 or 2 washers on this side, just enough for it to fully clear. There it is, got the clearance I need. Damn, after taking a closer look at this, it does look like I'm gonna have to order a different caliper bracket. The current one that I have with the E&C brakes just positions the caliper too far out from the rotor. So I might have to just experiment with a couple different brackets. I'm gonna order a few and see what works. Next, we're gonna be replacing this adjustable kickstand that I previously got from Amazon, which is unfortunately too short by at least an inch or so. Even with the setting completely maxed out, the bike pretty much wants to tip over if I try to use it. We're gonna be replacing it with another kickstand that I got from Amazon. I think this one was only like 11 bucks. It's about 2 inches longer than the current kickstand, which hopefully should be long enough. I just added a washer in between just to make it a little bit of a tighter fit. Seems to be a nice firm fit. So last time that we took this bike out, when I first threw the 12-inch wheels on, something just didn't feel right. It seemed like the bike was unhappy accelerating, and that is because the gearing was just way too tall. I completely missed one box that Electro & Co sent me, which is for this larger rear sprocket, which we needed to install to compensate for the larger overall diameter of the rear tire. So we're gonna be swapping that out now, and we're also gonna be throwing on a larger 35 chain. It's like an 80 tooth. It's a huge sprocket, but it's surprisingly super light. With aluminum stuff, I never want to torque it with any sort of impact. I still want to do everything by hand, just to make sure we don't over tighten anything. We're going to want to leave the rear axle loose enough so we can slide the axle blocks back and forth to adjust the chain tension once we get the longer one on. I wasn't sure how much chain we were going to need for the sprocket combo, so I just bought 5 feet of 35 chain from Amazon for like 21 bucks, and it came with a chain breaking tool. If you're interested in checking out any of the parts that we're using for today's project, I'll have the full build list in the description below. You can also get 5% off Electro & Co by using discount code PATOutdoors. All right, I'm gonna end up having to shorten this chain by at least a foot. All right, that seems to be about the right length that we need. Now I'm just gonna slide the rear axle back to tighten the chain tension. If you have an Electro & Co. rear swing arm extension kit, make sure you don't forget to loosen this caliper bracket bolt so that the left side slides back and forth freely. Once you got both sides evenly adjusted so the rear wheel's tracking perfectly straight, you can torque down the jam nuts on the adjustment bolts and tighten down the rear axle. Taking a quick break from the SX project. My buddy Elmer actually just got here. He's helping me with shooting some other projects, and he brought his RSF 650. This thing goes 60 miles per hour. I actually just rode this a month ago, and it inspired me to get this thing back on the road. Elmer, you want to tell us about your project here?
I got this bike from a local rider. His name was Brooks, who was selling a green RSF 650, which is rare because they don't make them anymore. They're usually, I think, only red nowadays.
Yeah.
The green ones, I think they only made maybe 500 total.
Yeah,
something.
It's definitely a rare color.
So when I got it, because it's such an older bike, original frame color was sun damaged, it was faded, so a buddy of mine has a mechanic and body repair shop, so he was able to get the paint coat and bring it back to as close to OEM green as possible. I even reached out to Razor to see if I can get the official or the most accurate color code, and that's what I did. I got a custom seat. A lot of people, they do like a Sauron adapter style seat. I kind of wanted to skip that step. And I reached out to my buddies over at Tapia Seats to see if they could do a Sauron style seat, so still have that Sauron aesthetic, but just kind of make it more bolt on. I've got the one motor right there. I think it's the noisy cricket controller inside the storage. The only thing that's not Electro & Co. outside of the kit is the battery. Shout out to Powerful Lithium. This is a 72 volt, I want to say 32 or 35 amp hour battery. Yeah, it's either 11 or 14, but I don't have it maxed out at dial.
I set your setting to the max possible last time.
And then I turned it back down. You're more used to razors than I am. This is my first one that I've ever done, so I didn't want to go crazy. I got a Drift 8 front plate, shout out to them. I've got a light bar in case I ever do night riding. Yeah, the only thing I wish I could do, we kind of talked off camera about, was getting Supermoto wheels, but that requires a swing arm, which they don't make for these bikes.
Can't fit 12-inch Supermotos like I have on the SX on these type of bikes because of the clearance behind the motor. This is with the stock 10-inch wheels. You can't even fit your fingers through it. So you'd have to get some sort of custom swing arm. Well, thanks for bringing this thing. I really like this bike. It inspired me to get this thing back on the road, but unfortunately the brake caliper that I ordered for this thing, I don't think is coming in till tomorrow. So we were not gonna be taking this thing out today. Next, I'm gonna be installing a black gripper style seat cover to darken up the back. Since we added the black fork in the front, I think it's gonna match a little bit better and complete the Supermoto look that I'm going for. I'm just using a generic gripper style seat cover I got from Amazon for like 23 bucks. I kind of wanted a gut seat cover, but I think it's like 90 bucks and it's gonna take a week or two to get here. I may consider switching it out again in the future, depending if this one holds up pretty well. I don't like the logo that comes on the seat cover though, so I'm gonna cut around it. I'm just gonna use the stock seat cover as a template to get it to the ballpark of the measurements I'm looking for. And here's a closer look at how the seat turned out. It's definitely not perfect by any means since I'm not a professional. There's a little bit of a loose spot right here in the center. Otherwise, it actually turned out pretty clean around the edges. Here's what the bottom side looked like. I just used some 3M Super 77 adhesive spray and a regular stapler with some shallow T50 staples, since I still can't afford an air stapler at this time. But overall, I'm pretty happy with the result considering this is like a $25 mod. If you don't want to go through all this trouble, you could hit up Bolts and Bolts for a custom seat. I think he makes some thicker ones with some padding if you want it to also be a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, I definitely think it looks a lot better with the black fork, with the black seat cover. I think it matches together pretty well. Let me know what you guys think so far. As soon as we get the correct front brake caliper bracket for this new fork, we're gonna wrap up the front brake, throw some shorter brake levers on, and take this thing out and see how fast it goes with the new gearing combo. I'm curious to see how torquey it will be with that big ass 82 sprocket on the back. But if you enjoyed today's video, do me a favor and hit that like button. If you like this kind of content, want to keep up with the SX project or any of my other builds, make sure you subscribe to this channel and turn your bell notification on. But this is going to be it for today. Thank you for watching.